Hey everybody, this is James from Chicago Free City. I am here with Michael, and I'm also here with Steve. Steve and Mike both just wrapped up multi-week events with their local players. That means in Portland, Steve is running something called the Trials of Spring. You may have heard about it or seen it on Discord. And in Chicago, Mike was running our Gothic Escalation League. We're going to learn in this video about what they created with their players and what you can keep in mind if you want to try something similar with your locals. Could you each give us just a little breakdown of exactly what you just wrapped up and what you were doing with these multi-week events? Steve, you want to go ahead first with the Trials of Spring?
Yeah, sure. It was like Sorcery Con had just wrapped up. There was sort of an early Gothic meta. Um, and the community in general was looking for maybe some other way to play, so we weren't all just playing Necromancer and Pathfinder. So I just kind of sat down and put together what I thought mostly, along with the feedback I had gotten, were four unique avatar pools of six avatars, roughly themed. The mighty, the mystical, the wicked, and the magical. So the themes were kind of like the mighty was most of the fighty guys, battle mage, dragon lord, Templar, like blade dancer, all that kind of stuff. Mystical was witch, druid, seer, animus, that kind of stuff, and so on. With the idea that we would run four tournaments with these four groups, and then we would take the two most played and the two least played from each group and have two more tournaments after that. And that really got the ball rolling. The first event was smaller, but like 10 players. But by the end, when we ran the favored, which was the two favorite from each person, we had 23 players at that tournament. Which is like last year there were two cornerstones in Portland and we had 24 players at each. So this was 23 players for a random event. I mean, not a random event, but the culmination of what was a really fun series. And it was just really great all through the 3 months to be chatting with folks like, what are you going to build for trials? What are you going to build for trials this week? Who's in the group this week? Yeah, it was just really awesome. Everybody had a bunch of fun playing avatars they wouldn't necessarily play, and brewing without deck restrictions, but knowing that your meta had shrunk to six avatars, and you'd be like, well, I don't have to play these cards because I don't have to worry about this avatar. And so that ended up, I think, being really fun for everybody.
The Avatar who will not be named. Mike, tell us about the Gothic Escalation League.
Yeah, so the Gothic Escalation League, we kicked that off similarly in the first quarter of 2026, like right at the new year. And our community in Chicago kind of exploded with a lot of new players right as Gothic released. So we were, yeah, trying to kick around ideas for how to sort of like onboard all of the new players, but also like in a way that's interesting to some of the players that have been there for a long time. And the way that the Gothic Escalation League ended up coming together was we ran sort of like a bi-weekly um, league where anyone that signed up would be assigned like one person to play against over the course of that round, and we'd like track the standings over the course as the league progressed. Um, and then we held a tournament at the end, and um, players could play remotely. They could play in person at the store, and then I think the other thing was just like how do we handle the card pool in a way that's approachable for new players. And the way we decided to structure it was um, everyone would start with Precon. And so the first round was just whatever Precon you chose to run with. And then for each subsequent round, we would add three more packs of Gothic to that card pool. Players could fill out the decks with anything in the draft kit, and then you could also um, sort of pivot between precons in between rounds. So if your first 2 rounds, you've got stuff that's good with Persecutor, and then you pull a bunch of stuff that's good with Necromancer. You can make that switch. We tried to make it like flexible and dynamic to how people were what their card pool looked like. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the story of the Gothic Escalation League.
Steve, your the full Trials of Spring took 6 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 tournaments a month for 3 months.
2 tournaments a month for 3 months. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
also
and we
got
ran roughly every other week, about. So,
yeah, and Mike ended up with running with every other week, and we did 6 rounds and then a tournament at the end. So somewhat similar. Can you knowing that kind of these longer timelines were in play, you guys, what was your biggest motivation for doing that as like a multi-week thing that kind of even though these two approaches, one of them is less connected than the other, it's still something where people are ideally coming back, right? And being a part of it from start to finish whenever they join. What were your biggest motivations for doing it that way?
The big reason for some of these like multi-week experiences is like the Sorcery release schedule, and just trying to get creative with a meta that's going to be like if you're just playing strictly constructed, going to be static, relatively static for an entire year. And then some of the other stuff that I thought was important about the multi week structure was just making this a casual experience and an approachable experience to new players. Um, so, like the Escalation League, you have a precon and 18 packs that you have to acquire over the course of what is that, like 12 to 14 weeks. And that's a pretty low financial burden on new players. um, and if you are starting from ground zero, you're like using all of the cards you open, which I think is pretty exciting. um, Also on the financial side, like Chicago, we're fortunate enough to have a store that can kind of like do learn to plays where we hand out a free precon if you come out. So like even even if you just have that one precon, you're like in a pretty good spot to like just dive in and participate in the league.
and we knew that I certainly had the feeling that like real competitive play would be weighted towards the end of the year. So I was like, here's our opportunity to do something fun and different and play around, and maybe somebody will find something that they really want to latch onto and try and get better at through the year, so that when we do get to the end of the year and more competitive stuff is happening, they'll be like, like I got the secret tech because I've been playing whatever Avatar of Water for 6 months. Um, and to make things more accessible too, that was the other thing. There was one of the original avatars was in each pool, and we allowed proxies of avatars. So there was no limit to what avatar you could play beyond the restrictions of each pool. I didn't want anybody to be like, I want to try Avatar of Earth, but I can't because I can't buy the $200 card or whatever, right? So we made that one exception for proxies there. But yeah, it was like, let's find something to keep people engaged in a different way, and along the way until we get to, probably the summer when things start to get, sweatier, pun intended.
Yeah, we're definitely feeling that here. I mean, the way you both have like presented the formats, they're very defined, but you had to start somewhere. I'm guessing, was this something that you just sat down and just you banged this out at home on a desk, or like were players involved? How did you like get to where you needed to be to say like we know what we're doing and let's get started?
We have a very active Discord in the Pacific Northwest altogether, but in Portland, Oregon specifically. So I threw some ideas out. I was like, oh, like what about like limited avatar pools? Like, would that be cool if we were just playing with a few avatars? A couple of groupings sort of surfaced, and then I was like, well, we need more than that. Um, and I like, there was a point at which I like didn't want too many cooks in the kitchen, and I was like, okay, like I have a framework, I have a good pulse on what my community would be interested in, so I went ahead and did it and sort of crossed my fingers and was like, I hope everybody likes these. And then when I started rolling them out, everybody was like, "This is rad," or like I'm going to be there every week, or oh, I specifically want to play in this pool. This pool looks fun to me. So and we had a couple of players that were there for all six of the tournaments, and a few that like either missed on purpose or missed because they just couldn't make it. But everybody came together at the end, and it was interesting for everybody along the way, because certainly when we got to that last 2 months, we were like building those pools along the way. So it was just kind of a rally point. It's like, oh, nobody played this week, so that'll be in the forgotten, which was the two least played. Or oh, everybody played this, so this will be in the favored. And then they could not only plan for whatever the next pool was coming up, but also plan for those last two tournaments. And yeah, kind of kept everybody engaged.
So the Gothic Escalation League was the second season that we've run. It was like probably the first like real one. Like the first one was kind of a practice, like almost like a scavenger hunt kind of league where it's
Yeah, what
like
did we do
play with every
with
avatar,
that?
play in a limited format game, play a precon game, play a
Oh
constructed
yeah.
game. And it's
Yeah,
like,
fun.
which was cool. And it gave us something to do before Gothic launched. But then, like, once Gothic launched in earnest, we were like, okay, let's tidy this up. Let's make it more structured and more exciting because our store has product again, and you know, um, we have a new set to learn. All this other like impetus. I like kind of pulled the survey or pulled the community, did a survey. What should we change? And we ran it as out of that.
I remember that we had that first kind of anything goes kitchen sink kind of league that we ran before Gothic came out, and then people were just asking about it. Like, like people were kind of saying, "Can we do this with Gothic? Can we do this with Gothic? Can we do this?" Like, I think it's all this to say, like, if anyone is watching this and thinking about, well, how do it's a lot of work to come up with the structure. Like, people will throw ideas at you, um, and it's pretty easy to get a temperature check if you are, yeah, getting along with everyone and just have the channel right to communicate with them. Felt pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, right? Like we were discussing in the Discord today, like more alternate formats that people would be interested in, and um, one of the other guys who runs Learn to Plays at a different store in town was saying like, oh, I was thinking about doing this, and then the discussion was like, oh, like what is the like whatever the Sorcery format, and I'm like, well, there's no official formats outside of the standard 60/30/10, but the good news is like we can come up with whatever we want as long as everybody's having a good time. And everybody's like, yeah, we can.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when you give people permission to just be like, we're not doing that right now, or like you don't have to live up to X or Y. Just like the whole point is just go grab something you've just never even bothered to. Then people can respond really strongly to it.
Like the shattering of the meta and just allowing us to play in this space that's between strict limited and like full constructed just made the game fresh and interesting over the course of the league. And it's kind of cool to see like the decks grow from that like more limited feel to like almost constructed. Like a couple people had some pretty crazy pulls and had decks that almost kind of replicated some of the more like meta decks. We had some pretty crazy necromancer and persecutor decks.
Yeah, I
Like,
also want to call out that like we were playing 40-20 after the first
oh
couple of
right,
weeks.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like that is that zone, right? Where it's like this is almost scarier in a way than constructed because it's like this guy can tear through this deck and just destroy me. um and I
Did you
heard
guys limit yourselves to the avatar that you started with the Precon, or like I assumed you could switch if you pulled something, but or could you just say at any point like you can play any of the Gothic avatars?
Yeah, you had to pick a like a precon as the foundation of your card pool, but you don't have to use the avatar that comes in that precon. And we saw a few people, like they'd pull a necromancer later in the see through one of the rounds, and then like, okay, I'm gonna use the persecutor as the foundation, and then swap in necromancer or something like that. Um, uh, I think James, you won the like best deck building, right? Like you had some
Yeah,
pretty
that's code
cool.
for flailing constantly because I did no consistency. I was just trying to like, oh, that didn't work. Let me try the next thing, and it's
I
I
love
think
that.
I had four different savior builds at one point that were all equally. Yeah, I never went with any of them, but um, so wrapping up here, what's one piece of advice you would give to people who are going to grab your document, that we're linking and try something on their own, or just have their own idea that they now want to move forward with for like one of these multi-week things that it's kind of a commitment. Yeah, considering whatever challenges you faced or whatever was really great, what's one piece of advice you would give to people who want to run one of these kinds of experiences, their locals?
mean, I would say you definitely do want to have some amount of community buy-in, right? Like I felt confident moving forward because I had floated this idea and got a baseline positive feedback. And then I tailored it from that point on. And then the next piece of it, once I rolled it out, the next piece of it is you just simply have to like keep talking about it. And I mean, we're lucky. We have about 3 or 4 shops in town that have sorcery, casual play, and whatnot. So I was just everywhere playing because I love playing sorcery and being like, hey, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. So yeah, I mean, be your biggest advocate, but make sure you're listening to what your players want.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't be afraid to like, yeah, just try something. Like everybody wants to meet up and play this game. Like, so if you give them the structure to do so, they'll do it. So that would be my advice. Just yeah, don't be afraid, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to like screw stuff up. We've like changed this league like 3 or 4 times, and we're just like keep coming into like new challenges. So
Well, yeah, and
um,
people keep coming in. It's just crazy. Like
yeah,
it's really growing
yeah,
the player base here. Just having something that people feel like a thing is happening and it's still